Hello and welcome to the York County Government Show. I'm Deb Gruber, your host, and today I'm joined by Amy Kowalczyk. Welcome.
Thank you.
Amy Kowalczyk is our Planning and Zoning Director, and we're going to talk about AIS today. Tell us about AIS, Aquatic Invasive Species, but first, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I've worked for the county for 15 years, first in Public Works and now over in Planning and Zoning, and so I've served the county of Morrison for quite some time, and I enjoy it very much. Yeah. So, and now we have this new program, our AIS program.
You do, and you do an excellent job. It isn't an easy job that you have in terms of working with folks and the use of their land and their property, and so I appreciate the work you do, and
thank you.
I know it gets done well. I see that all the time. So AIS, Aquatic Invasive Species.
Yes. So that is our newest program, and first of all, I'd like to talk about what aquatic invasive species are. You know, they're plants and animals that are not native to Minnesota, and so they don't have natural predators here, and so they can multiply quite quickly and compete with other animal species in the aquatic lakes and rivers, and because they don't have any natural predators, like maybe they come from Europe and maybe they come from, have natural predators there, they don't in Minnesota. And so they can cause economic harm and environmental harm. And that's what makes something an aquatic invasive species.
How do they get into the waters if they're from elsewhere, so to speak?
Well, as you know, we travel a lot, and we travel from state to state, and so we carry invasive species with us. So most of the invasive species end up through human introduction, from human use of our lakes and rivers and streams. And so they get the nickname aquatic hitchhikers for that reason. And so they will come in on our boats, on our skis, on our fishing equipment, hunting equipment, docks that might get bought and put into a new lake. So those are the common ways that aquatic invasive species are able to move around the United States and also from country to country.
Very interesting. And maybe kind of step back just a little bit in terms of they can take different forms. Weeds from,
yes.
You know.
So aquatic invasive species aren't limited to just animals, and they're plants and animals. And they get grouped together into aquatic invasive species because they live in the aquatic environment, but they are invasive in the Minnesota environment.
Okay. Because people, at least I will think of aquatic invasive species, sometimes I go immediately to weeds, and then all of a sudden zebra mussels come to mind. Well, then certain types of carp or different actual fish may be considered that also. So just to let everybody know and get acclimated with, there's a large scope.
Yes, there is, and their environmental damage and economic damage is different from species to species.
Sure, give us a little more elaboration on what those effects are and what can happen.
Well, it depends on the species we're talking about. Most invasive plants will outcompete native plants. They will overgrow an area. You might see those weed mats in the lake. They also might choke out some of the other natural animals that might live there and compete that way. So some of the native fish maybe won't have as much to feed on because they're choking out other animal species, and they're taking away some of that other plant material that their prey feed on. And so we have plants, and they also can just be burdensome. It makes it really hard to recreate in a lake. So it not only has effects on wildlife, but it also has effects on how you are able to use the lake. And so water skiing becomes more difficult, swimming becomes more difficult, and not as enjoyable on a lake that is overgrown with an invasive species.
Yeah, and we really do depend on, in so many areas of the state, use of those waterways for recreation, for business, for all of that type of economic
Absolutely,
factor.
we do.
Yes.
Especially in Morrison County, we don't have a lot of lakes. And so the lakes that we do have, it's important to be cognizant of invasive species, know what they look like, and be able to detect them early. You know, animal invasive species, like you said, can be the zebra mussels. They can even be fish that you release from your aquarium that aren't native to the area. They can be carp, and then there's the spiny water flea that is problematic for fishermen, or fisherwomen, I should say, and fishermen, because they do hang on to, or they attach to your fishing line and are tough to remove. So there's that whole gamut of animals that cause problems, and in that respect, they can compete for food for native species. And in the case of a zebra mussel, they attach to everything, and they're hard to remove, so things can look unsightly. And then also they're sharp, and so if you step on one, it hurts. It cuts your feet. So again, an environmental impact and also an economic impact when it comes to recreation and sport fish and all of that.
Yeah, and I know we're lucky enough, me and my family, to spend time at our cabin. It's on a lake that's infected with zebra mussels, and I know my two boys are very aware of that. And
yes.
If we go to a sandbar, if they're playing in the water, it can hurt and they can get cuts, and we've had to deal with that. It is unfortunate with zebra mussels. What do we do to treat this?
Well, in the case of zebra mussels, there isn't any treatment. If you find zebra mussels in a lake, the population is large enough where you're not able to treat them. So you're really trying to limit the spread of them at that point. There are chemical treatments, though, for some of the plant species. We have, hand pulling some of those and replacing those with native species. So some of those practices go on. And, we're fortunate to have the University of Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center. They work every day on this issue and are on the forefront of really developing treatments and trials for some of these things. But some of this is an ongoing research project, and some of it you just have to accept that that's going to be the dynamic in that lake.
Until something else occurs that we may not know of now.
Yes.
But interesting. Now, I know we have a number of lakes in Morrison County, and I know that in being familiar with the process in which there's different lake improvement districts and things of that nature that come into our board, and we interact with. I know there are lakes that have aquatic invasive species in Morrison County. Yes,
we do.
What do we have going on?
Yeah, so Morrison County lakes are not immune from aquatic invasive species, and we do have a presence of curly leaf pondweed, Eurasian water milfoil, invasive carp, and zebra mussels in certain stretches of the Mississippi River, and then also in some of our lakes. And so we do have very proactive lake associations that treat what they can, and they have their eyes open on that lake to try to, that early detection is key, and to try to understand where these things are coming from, where they're going, where the infestations are in their lake. And so we do have that, and that's something to be aware of, because then there's the possibility of spreading that to the other lakes.
And how does that happen? What do we need to do as users of those bodies of water keep in mind?
Well, the first thing really is to know what, if any, infestation there is in the lake that you're fishing on, recreating on, hunting on, and also if you're buying a dock or something from another body of water, it's important to know if that lake was infested with anything. And so biggest thing is being aware of what's in the body of water that you have, that you're going to, and remember the aquatic hitchhikers. So they're going to hitch a ride with you if they can. And some of these things are, when zebra mussels are really, when they're really small, they're called veligers. They're so tiny, it's really difficult to see them. And so it's important to get into the practice of clean, drain, dry. And that is a statewide message that most people have heard of. But it's important to get into that practice of clean, which means when you pull your boat or equipment out of the water, that you look for weeds and any attachments that was not on your boat when you put it in. And that includes your trailer. So cleaning all of that off, draining all of the bilge pumps, making sure all the water drains from your trailer and all of that, and then drying. So if you're going to go from lake to lake, allowing a drying period in between will kill anything that, because they're aquatic, they need water to live.
Yes.
And so that will keep, you need a period of dry time, especially if you're coming from an infested lake, to allow time for anything that you might have missed to die off.
Yeah, and some of those, as you indicated, are so small you can't see them.
Yes,
so.
exactly. Or sometimes you can't quite completely get all the water out, so allowing that dry time is important.
Sure, makes sense. Tell us a little bit about the program in Morrison County for AIS.
Well, in 2014, there was a tax bill that was passed by the Minnesota legislature. Mm-hmm. And what that did is that put money into the hands of each individual county for aquatic invasive species work. And that funding was based on the number of public accesses a county has and the number of parking spaces. So the funding varies from county to county. So obviously a county like Cass County or Crow Wing County is going to be dealing with more money than Morrison County because they have a lot more public accesses and parking spots.
Sure.
But what we're tasked with that money is we need to have a program that will further AIS awareness and prevention. And so this was a new program for Morrison County. We certainly were aware of aquatic invasive species, and we have some very proactive lake improvement districts and lake associations that have been tackling this issue for quite some time. This really bumped the county into having a more active role in that. And so what our plan looks like is we're taking an educational approach to this issue and really trying to educate all of the different people that use our lakes about what aquatic invasive species are, what they need to be aware of, and how to prevent moving them from lake to lake. So that's really our major push, and that comes in the form of many things. We have done direct mailings in tax statements to people about aquatic invasive species. We also do have a unit at the Water Festival, and that's for 6th graders, so we are reaching out to our younger citizens and educating them on what aquatic invasive species are and what they mean. And then we also did partner with some of our other counties for a large media campaign that is out now, and our clip is on our website, and we'll be seeing more of that. And then new for 2016, we also are rolling out a grant program for our lake associations and lake improvement districts. They are very anxious to start some more AIS work, and we are happy to support those projects, and so we will be granting some projects on a real localized level in 2016, and we're really looking forward to seeing some of those projects.
And I think that's great. Those folks are the ones that know what's going on in their lake and know what maybe needs to be done or hasn't been done, or how to maybe tackle it a bit better than we would looking from the outside. So I am anxious to see what the results of that are.
And they partner well. They do reach across and partner with each other, and so I think that's going to be a great addition to our aquatic invasive species program.
Good. It's very interesting, that whole concept, when typically this has been under the DNR world, so to speak, in terms of education, in terms of enforcement and things of that nature. And with that passage of that law change, or the funding stream that it went to individual counties, it really branched that out. The DNR still has general oversight, and they're still the main component when it comes to AIS and fighting that fight, but individual counties are able to put a little bit of their unique or individual spin on that stuff. And so it is interesting, and working even farther down with the lake associations and the lake improvement districts is going to be great to even personalize it more.
Absolutely. The Department of Natural Resources they've been inspecting at our landings for quite some time, and they will continue to do that. They also have really become a partner with the county. They've been dealing with this for a long time. They're a great education resource, and they do what they can to help each county with the plan. And so, yes, they will continue to be a big presence in the AIS world, and they did have dollars allocated to them also to support counties. So it's a good partnership.
Good. You mentioned the DNR does the water access enforcement inspections. Is that something that Morrison County intends to do?
At this time, we have no plan to undertake an inspection program. Like I said before, the funding levels were very different from county to county, and there is some significant staffing issues and equipment needs if you're going to be undertaking an inspection program. And so the DNR does allocate some hours to inspecting our landings now, so we do have some inspection presence now, but we don't have plans to go outside of kind of the education mode, I guess, at this point to provide any inspection hours, unless the funding regime changed.
Sure, that makes sense. And we'll see what the lake groups come up with in terms of their ideas, and hopefully we can put that money to good use with partnering for this cause. And thank you, Amy, for joining us on the show, and appreciate the information, and you do a great job. Thank you for what you do for Morrison County, and thank you for joining us for the Your County Government Show, which is aired Fridays at 2 p.m. and Saturdays at 7 on Charter Channel 180.
Here in Morrison County, there are very few resources more important than our beautiful lakes and rivers. Our residents welcome hundreds of visitors from all over the United States every year to enjoy our waters. Yes, lake life is a big part of life in Morrison County. But today, our precious lakes and rivers face a serious challenge from silent foreign invaders who have proven they have the power to seriously alter how we use our waters. Still, the people of Morrison County won't give up the lakes we love without a fight, and the future is not written in stone. It'll only take a little knowledge, some old-fashioned teamwork, and the will to lead the way in changing Minnesota traditions.
An invasive species is one that is not native to the area, of course, but it's also one that causes some type of harm, whether it be ecological, economic, some type of impact that species is causing by being here. And that's the divider between just a non-native and an invasive, what we would then classify invasive species. The 5 big ones being spiny water flea, zebra mussel, faucet snail, Eurasian water milfoil, and curly leaf. And they all have some type of survival tactic, and we have to remember that because they're not native to here, their predators are non-existent. You know, what may eat these over in Europe don't exist over here. So they have a chance to reproduce and then survive, and then reproduce and survive. They say a female zebra mussel can, in each breeding cycle, which they do multiple times in a summer, can reproduce about 40,000 eggs just on one breeding adult.
There are nearly 200 lakes in Morrison County, and every single one of them is special and worth protecting. Our goal is to make sure all users of our waters understand the importance of preventing the spread of aquatic invasive species. Sportsmen, especially anglers, have been targeted for AIS education from the beginning and have a head start in understanding and implementing AIS prevention practices. But there are plenty of other users, like high-flying water sport enthusiasts, who may not be quite so familiar with the seriousness of the threat, and we need to make sure everyone is working together to protect our Morrison County waters.
We are at the greatest point in Minnesota history to make a difference. There's political will to work on aquatic invasive species. There's funding coming from the state. There's local counties doing their part with inspectors and decontamination units. There's the Department of Natural Resources working on this. And there's the University of Minnesota doing research which just isn't focusing on what's here now, but what could be coming in the future. All the pieces are together to make this thing happen and to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. What we need is you.
Once you get invasive species in a lake, that lake becomes less desirable and affects property values, affects tourism. The whole economy really revolves around lakes, and that's a lot of Minnesota. So
it's something that, you know, we all got to get on top of, and we all got to work together, because it only takes one boat going from one lake that has it into a lake that doesn't, and boom.
It's huge here in Minnesota just to have, you know, nice, clean, accessible lakes, because if there's milfoil and zebra mussels, it takes away from that experience. And, you know, that's why it's so important to protect our lakes.
As of right now, there is no cure for zebra mussels. There's a lot of research going on, trying to find ways to slow down their reproductive process. But as of right now, there is no cure for zebra mussels. So, you know, every single person that does the right thing and cleans their boat off is helping prevent and save Minnesota lakes, saving, you know, lakes around the Midwest.
You know, as time goes on, we keep finding out more and more how it's, you know, affecting all the fish in the lake, and it's affecting the swimming, you know, people stepping on them, and, you know, the boating, everything. It really affects the lake experience in general. And, you know, if we can prevent that just by taking these small steps of making sure that your boat's clean and dry when you're transporting it, I mean, it's really worth it to do.
It's not only the Fun in the Sun users or the fishermen that have to be diligent. Fighting the spread of AIS is a year-round battle in Morrison County. In the fall, waterfowl hunters need to take extra care when moving decoys and equipment from one lake to another. And even ice fishermen need to be aware of the possibility of spreading invasives. Preventing the spread of aquatic invasives isn't difficult. It's really just a matter of changing our habits. Instead of running from one lake to another with a full live well and no thought to what's on or in our boats and trailers, we simply need to slow down, take a few extra minutes, and make sure we clean, drain, and dry. There is a time for everything, and in Morrison County, the time to fight AIS is right now. Working as a team, with fishermen, wakeboarders, hunters, skiers, swimmers, all users of our waters doing their part, we will protect and continue to enjoy the lakes and rivers of Morrison County forever.